We're now on Daf Yud Zayin Amid Beis. Elo li olchem bin ol lacher zrika fil b'fnimu loke. In the case of a korban olah that has to be kulo kolil and there's no achilu whatsoever, the Torah tells us that the mitzvah of olah is to burn it on the mizbeach. But now the Torah wants to give you a lav, which you violated in Makkos if you went ahead and you ate a kazayas of the korban olah, even after zrika and even inside the azar. It doesn't matter. Amar Rava. Rava now praises Reb Shimon. What a great scholar and a brilliant thinker he is. Deleda ime, if a person's mother is giving birth, then you should pray ki Reb Shimon teled. She should give birth to someone as great as Reb Shimon. V'lo lo teled. If she cannot give birth to someone as great as Reb Shimon, then she shouldn't even bother giving birth. So this is a tefillah for a ben Talmud Chacham. But yet, in the same breath, Rava turns around and he says, "V'yafagav de islim percha." Even though Rav Shimon's drushos was so fantastic and so profound and so sharp, nevertheless, each one of his kal v'chomers lends itself to a percha. Strange. V'yafagav de islim percha. What is the percha? Because my chumrah to be kurim imasa. Why do you have a kal v'chomer of Shimon that bikurim is more chomer than masa, which we assume because bikurim is kodshim and masa is not kodshim. Shekei asurim l'zorim. Anybody can eat masa sheni in Yerushalayim. You don't have to be a kohen. But in the case of bikurim, only a kohen is allowed to eat the bikurim. Not a zar. Adarabba says, Rava, I'm going to show you that we're more machmir in the case of Maser Sheni than we are in Bikurim. How so? Adarabba shekein asul Maser Chomer shekein asul le'onein. So an onein who lost one of his 7 relatives and it's before the Kvura is not allowed to eat Maser Sheni. And that's why it says in the Pasuk, Lo achalti bi'oni mimenu in Vidu Maser. But an onein is allowed to eat bikurim. So here we have a chumrah in Maser Sheni that we don't have in bikurim. I find this mind-boggling. Who would say that there's a chumrah? The din of onein is halacha in aninus. Maser Sheni requires, simcha. Because when a person says vidur Maser Sheni, he says hine, hevesi. Chazal say, what's the hine besimcha? Right, this is a separate halacha simcha. So an onein is not besimcha; he doesn't eat Maser Sheni. But that has nothing to do with the fact that Maser Sheni is not kodshim. It could be eaten by a zar, whereas bechar is kodshim. I'm sorry. What are we talking about now? Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't get it to bechar yet. But bikurim. Bikurim requires hanoch al gabi mizbeach. Umay chumra de toda v'shlamim mimaser shekein te'unim matan domim haktar simurim l'gabi mizbeach. It's kodshim. Maser Sheni is not kodshim. Adarai b'maser chamor shekein te'unim kesef tzura. Again, I find this mind-boggling. What's the chumrah of Maser Sheni? That if you want to be poda Maser Sheni, you need what's called kesef tzura. It's a special kind of silver coin. But toda and shlamim, let's say it became puzzle, and now it's psulei mukdashim, which lends itself to pigeon, because you can't be poda kodshim at all unless it's a balmum. But now it's a balmum, and you can poda it onto anything. I can be poded onto this table. I certainly don't need kesef sheish bo tzura. Now Rava goes on and attacks Rabbi Shimon's next kal v'chomer. My chumra de bechor mitodu shlamim shekein kedushaso mirechem ima. Right, there's a chumra in bechor because bechor is kadosh immediately when it's born. Adarabba. I have a percha, says Rava. Why? Todu shlam chamurim shekein tunim smicha nesachim Tnufas chazav v'shol. Meaning, with regard to Bechor, we don't need smicha. We don't need, and again, it makes sense that you don't need smicha. And you don't need Nesachim, Tnufa, and Chazav v'shol. Again, for this, we'd have to learn, Maseches Bechoros, but that's the din of Bechor. And therefore, we have now a chumrah in Tod and Shlam that we don't have in Bechor. Let's go on. The next Kal V'chomer. Umay chumrah dechatzos v'yashim b'Bechor shekein kodshim kodshim. Whereas Bechor is only kodshim kalim. Is Rabba, I'll show you that Bechor as a chumrah became because it's kodesh mirechem imo. Let's see if I got that right. Yeah, chumrah shekein kedushaso mirechem imo. Let's go on to next Kal V'chomer. Ma chumrah di ola mechatzos shekein kul kolil. Right, ola is it doesn't lend itself to any achilu whatsoever. Is Rabba chatzos v'yoshim chamir shekein mechafrei. Now, I'm not sure what the Gemara means over here. An Ola is also Machater. What if the Gemara says that there's no Kapara for an Ola? But the answer, I think, is the following. The Machayev of Chatas V'Yoshim is Chet. And the need for these Karbanos is to atone for a sin, to achieve Kapara. An Ola, which is Babin and Dava, is not necessarily generated by Chet. You can't bring a Chatos as an optional voluntary carbon. Ain't no such thing. The whole essence of a chatos or an asham is for chet kapar lachet. Not so in the case of an ola. I'll give you an example from tefillah. Right, you can't daven a tefillas chova twice, but you could daven after a chova tefillas nedava. That tefillas nedava is like an ola. So that's not coming for kapara on a chet. The Torah is more machmir when the sibas generating the chiyuv is a chet. The kul chamiri me'ola de'isbehu shtei achilos. An ola only has one achila, which is called achilas mizbeach. All the other karbonis have a double achila. There's achilas mizbeach, and on top of that, there's achilas adam. So basically, this is like a postscript to Rava's attack against Rabbi Shimon. He's saying that even the derivation of ola from Toda and Shlamim and Bechor and so forth is really subject to a pircha because all the other karbanos ola, excepting ola, namely Toda, Shlamim, and Chatas, and Oshim, all have a double achil. So why was Rava so full of superlatives for Reb Shimon after he himself, Rava, slugged them all up? And the answer is the Lamai Desfir Leili Day Misarisle Likravidarisle. According to Reb Shimon's own logic, that X is more chomer than Y, therefore he took apart the pasuk beautifully in his analytic analysis of the pasuk. Now the Gemara asks the question, wait a minute. All of Reb Shimon's analysis is based on Kal V'chomer. And we would certainly derive the chiyuv Makkos of X from Y because X is more chomer than Y. In fact, the Gemara, not only that, you're deriving not only an onish, but even an azhara. There may be a room for a dispute and a controversy about whether there's onish min adin, if I could derive logically an onish, like Makkos, but everybody agrees that I need an azhara in the Torah. I can't derive an azhara from a kal v'chomer in masir min adin. The Gemara answers, Isura bi alma. Even though ein masir min adin, you always have to have an azhara in order to set up a chiyuv Makkos, a chiyuv onesh. But if you want to derive an isur and come to the conclusion and rule that such and such of an achil is asur, for that you can rely on a kal v'chomer. Frek the Gemara of Omar Rava Zar Sha'acham in Ha'ol Lefnei Zrika Chutz L'Choma L'Reb Shimon Loke Chamesh. You see clearly that we're not just, according to Reb Shimon, deriving an Azhar and an Isur, we're deriving a Chiv Onesh. Because Reb Shimon himself says that if you eat from the Ola before Zrika, then you get 5 sets of Malkas. And the Gemara answers you have to really push it into the language of Reb Shimon. He doesn't mean 5 sets of Malkas. What did he have in mind? Chamisha Isurim have. Frek the Gemara, but what about our Mishnah? V'anan Tanan, our Mishnah quotes Reb Shimon. Elu hein alokim. Right, and on the list you have Bikurim, which is even before Kriya of the Karel of Shem. You have Kachim Kachim, Chutz Miklayim. He ate it outside of the Azar and he gets Malkas. And this, according to Reb Shimon, this is all derived from a Kal V'chomer. And the Gemara says, Ela Kroyis Seirahu. The Gemara says, you know what? We don't have a problem of a Kal V'chomer if there's an extra pasuk. So even though the pasuk starts with one lav, lo sucha lechol, and then has a whole list of what you're not allowed to eat outside of whatever, whether it's Yerushalayim, whether it's the Azor, and so forth. But nevertheless, since there are extra psukim here, it's as if the Torah repeated itself over and over again with the same lav, lo sucha lechol. You're not allowed to eat this, you're not allowed to eat that, A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z. You can't eat it at all. And that gives you a separate azhara for each one of these isur. And therefore you can get malchus. Okay, there are both sides. We'll stop here and I'll wish you a great Shabbos Parshas Pekudei. Not Pekudei. Shmini. Why did I say Pekudei? Okay. That's probably the last time we got together, so I'm still... Okay, have a great Shabbos. Thank you so much.